Hi students! Today I would like to show you how to create depth with negative space. A lot of times we as artists focus on the positive space and we really try to add all of our details and our value and make that positive space appealing, and then we forget about the negative space. So I want to teach you how to work with just the negative space to help make the positive spaces pop. So basically what you're going to see, this is an example of what we're going to make today, but in your final piece you should be able to see a painting with multiple layers of leaves bursting forth, even though just the space around them is painted. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get started. I am going to move the camera down so you can see our canvas here, okay? So this paper, we're just doing a small version of this today, boys and girls. So this should not take you very long. Tape it down, and then I went ahead and did a wet on wet wash. So if you remember, wet on wet means that you paint the entire surface with water and then go ahead and just add your colors, okay? So I added these colors, these warmy colors. You can go ahead and add any color scheme that you would like for this, okay? You're going to need to let it dry for a few minutes. I went ahead and did this maybe a minute ago, and then I literally just took this paper towel and then just blotted it like this, okay? So it really is a little bit damp right now. The next step is to take a pencil, and I just want you to go in and make some leaves. Make maple leaves wherever you would like, okay? The first one is going to be the closest thing to me. It's going to be the maple leaf that has the most focus, that is in the foreground. So I'm going to choose this area right here because it is very light. I mean, it's almost white in this area. And I want to make that area pop first. So I'm going to purposefully add my first maple leaf here because of that white value that's going on there, okay? Now I'm going to come over here and have some of it, you know, in the yellow, you'll notice, in this yellow area, but that's okay. So there's my first one. I would add, you can add details later. So then the next one, we need overlapping here because to make this work correctly, it really looks better if we've got some overlapping. And really, you can't mess up a maple leaf. They're all, I mean, it's just kind of like a funky shape, isn't it? So just don't worry about the shape, just funky lines, basically, right? Just keep on going. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to do like a little section right here in the corner. If you can see that, just leave that there. Then maybe one way back in here. This one's going to be, I can kind of visualize that this little one right here might be way in the back behind everything. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure your leaves are not all the same size. Make them different. You could even just maybe stick one coming out like this, just like the, you know, the tip of one coming out. Okay, so that's probably good to start with. The next step is to take a brush and dip it in water. I just did that. And then you want to take and add just a little bit darker tones to some of these leaves. Obviously, I am not going to saturate my brush. I don't want this to be really dark. Just enough to where you can give it some color that's a little bit darker than what you've got, okay? You definitely don't want to do this to your focal point leaf, whichever one you chose to be your focal point in the foreground. Foreground means front. I'm pretty sure you guys all know what that means. Anyway, you don't want to do this on this leaf because this is the one that I have already designated to be my focal point right there. Okay, so I'm not going to do that on there, but I want to just go ahead and take some of this. See how dark that is? I'm going to dilute that. I'm dipping that in water. I don't want it that dark, but I'm just going to go ahead and add to these other leaves. Okay, notice that my overlapping, this leaf is underneath that focal point leaf. That's definitely what you want. Okay, this leaf right here should be on top of everything else, so make sure you focus on that. I like how that's really dark right there. That's kind of pretty. Okay, and then maybe go ahead and go with this dark area right here because this one might be, you know, really far back behind there. Maybe add a little bit of color change right there. Dip it in, every now and then dip in water if it seems to be drying out on you. Just be careful when you're painting. You don't want it to be sloppy, so kind of, you know, your paintbrush is key. Finding the right paintbrush is like half your battle, guys. If you can find the paintbrush that will work best for the area, that's perfect. Sometimes I see students that have a big, humongous paintbrush, and they're trying to paint inside of these little teeny tiny areas, and it's impossible. Don't do that. That's going to stress you out. Okay, so here we go. I think that's fine. So now what I want to do, boys and girls, is I've got this green, real dark green color, and I'm going to mix that with that reddish. And what I'm going to do is start creating my depth in the background. So remember, this is creating depth with negative space. So this is my negative space right here. Positive space is the leaves. The negative space is the background. So I am just carefully going in and painting around like this and creating some different values there, okay? So I don't want the whole thing to be brown, so I'm just grabbing some of this orange in here, okay? And I'm going to show you what to do when you get bleeding. So hold on tight. There's some bleeding occurring, so I'm going to fix that. Now this area is kind of tricky because of the way I have it drawn. Just be careful. Okay. That bleeding, I'm going to take care of that right now. Okay. So I have Q-tips. I'm going to let you guys use Q-tips, but I'm going to take just the tip of this, and before it bleeds too far and gets stained, before the paper actually accepts it and stains it, I am going to come in here and get it out of there. Okay, see how that works? If you wait too long, it's going to stain the paper and you can't fix it. So get that out right away, and then you can continue going in with your colors. Okay, I'm gonna add more green to this, so it's gonna be, yeah, there we go. That's gonna create some good depth right there, this area. Okay, so if you can see, you know, I think you guys can figure out what to do next. You just keep on going and working with it and blending your colors. Please don't do black and make the whole background black. That's not going to give you the depth that I'm trying to teach you to do. Make sure that you're doing different values. Make sure you're adding possibly green. I don't know what colors you want to add. reds, purples. Make a combination. Do some colors that bleed together, kind of like this. A little bit of bleeding. You see that? So color bleeding, really dark around the edges that you really want those leaves to pop. Okay? And you can just do some subtle areas, like this area right here. Let's make it a subtle area and not so dark. Okay? And then that's going to make that leaf pop a little bit less. So kind of depends on what you want it to look like. Okay? So once you're finished with that, you'll notice that I'm going to switch here. This is my original. You'll notice that I went through and I added some black outline on some of the leaves that I want to pop forward, or the leaves that I am trying to make in the foreground. I want them to be in the foreground, and I want them to look like they're in the foreground. So obviously I'm going to add detail with the veins. I'm going to add a slight outline around them, and it's going to make them pop. Okay, you wouldn't want to outline all these back here, because then you're playing with the background and the negative space, and it's kind of counterintuitive if you want to do that. That probably isn't a good idea. So more detail, outlining the foreground, and then as you get back into space, they're a little bit less detailed. Like this one, you can't even see much detail at all. Not much detail in these. A little bit in the ones that are a little bit closer. Okay, so I want you to play with that and see how you do. And hopefully this will help you to learn how to create some depth with your negative space.